Well, everybody, if this goes according to plan, you'll be seeing a movie night 1 week after the previous movie night, and that's a miracle, at least in the last 4 months or so. And you know what else is a miracle? This is not a solo Mr. ENT movie night, because EliteAri is here.
Yep, I'm here. And we're going to record, and it's great. And,
yes, everything's recording.
Yep.
This is not the lighthouse. I'm seeing audio bars go up. I'm seeing start recording in the corner. Nothing could possibly go wrong. Our image is kind of shitty and not as good as usual. I don't know why. Google had shit images for the Crucible, greatest movie of all time, but crazy. But anyway, we're here to talk about the Crucible. At the beginning of these things, I usually say what next week's is going to be, and I've now decided that it's going to be the Old Boy director. This is some Korean director. I'm pretty sure he made the movie Old Boy, 2003, I think. And we were also going to watch his next movie, which I think is called Lady Vengeance, because it had the coolest poster out of his other movies, and it's about a lady in vengeance. Probably rape in there somewhere, I would assume.
Is this a recent movie?
No, that's 2005. So 2003 and 2005.
Jesus,
you ever heard of Old Boy, EliteAri?
Yeah, I've watched Old Boy.
Oh my goodness.
I hardly remember. I do. Some bits of it are so good, from what I remember. But
I got like a plot synopsis kind of in a video one time, and I was like, man, what a mystery. But I didn't get the payoff to the mystery. He's like held prisoner for like 15 years or something. He's got to figure out why. Crazy. Can't wait. But that'll be next week. It is going to be the first of the new types of movie nights where we're doing groups of movies together. So we can accomplish more things at once. I think that'll be a better format going forward. So everyone after this will probably also be longer moving forward, because I will be stitching 2 recordings together probably. So EliteAri, you don't want to join us next week? My God, imagine if I get it out next week. That'd be crazy.
I don't know, maybe for Old Boy. I don't know. We'll see.
No, he's probably not, right? We're busy. This is hard to schedule.
Probably not, no.
Don't get your hopes up, chat.
We got Chainsaw Man every week.
Yes, my goodness. Remember the times. Oh, no. He's talking about current Chainsaw Man. We probably didn't do Chainsaw Man every week, but that's besides the point. There's other of our
Black
duo
Sails, that
content.
was every week.
What a series Black Sails was. But yeah, so Park Chan Woo-chan, is that his name? That's the director's name, right? We're doing
Who?
That's the director of Old Boys.
idea.
Oh my God, EliteAri doesn't know nothing. Do you know who directed this movie, The Crucible, EliteAri?
Absolutely. I remember they had credits at the beginning and they were like, this person's Crucible or something. But
No,
maybe it's a
that's
book, right?
Arthur
Or
Miller,
a
you
play or
idiot.
something?
That's the playwright. This is
Right.
Nicholas Hayter is the director of this.
I don't know who that is.
I've never seen any of his other stuff. He has A Midsummer's Night Dream, a theatre live recording, so he must be a theatre director mostly. That's a Shakespeare thing, EliteAri. You remember we're going to do all of those?
I know, I've heard it.
A Midsummer's Night Dream, that's the one with Puck the
I did have a
Fairy in
moment
it.
oh boy. I was watching this and like the language is somewhat hard to understand every now and then in this.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I remember why Shakespeare was so annoying to read.
Yeah.
Because I'd forgotten about it. I was like, yeah, it can't be that bad, right? But yeah, here we are trying to
This is
understand it.
significantly easier than Shakespeare, I will say.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Because I did this in grade 11 in English class. I guess we'll tell that story.
Yeah.
Park Chan-wook, you fucking idiot. That's the director, right? I was looking that up on Letterboxd, believe it or not. I was. So, Arthur Miller, EliteAri, is a playwright. He dated Marilyn Monroe. I think they were married for a little while. That's crazy. That's a famous name, you know. That was all established in episode 1 of Movie Night when we covered the movie Blonde, and Arthur Miller is a character in that. And she talks about his writing a little bit. I don't think he ever talks about the Crucible directly in the movie. He being the actor that plays him.
Yes.
But he's a wacky fella, this Arthur Miller. Wait. How much of this is going to be me giving basically being my 11th grade English teacher and saying all the context like that we did in like the week before we actually read the play? It's going to be partly that.
Yeah, well, I know nothing about this. Going into it, I knew nothing. I'd heard about it's studied somewhere in Australia in school. I don't know if it's in New South Wales.
We've got to set the stage for this a little bit, which is going to be a lot of me expositing. Now, me and EliteAri, movie night came to be. Me and EliteAri had previously been talking about how we got to do these Shakespeare things. We got to figure these fucking Shakespeare things. Everybody talks about them. They're seminal pieces in the history of this planet and humanity and everything else. You just got to know all about them. And we both seen like 2 of them that we did in school. I've seen fucking Romeo and Juliet and Macbeth. And EliteAri, which ones have you seen again? Macbeth and something else, because that's how...
Macbeth, Hamlet, Othello. I don't know if
He's got more than me. He's just flexing. Fuck EliteAri. He's a prick. But yes, we will kind of want to do them all, or something that's like a fantastical, whatever. It's a fantasy off in the distance, is what I'm trying to say. And this is because like in your English curriculum, you usually do 2 plays a year, I think, in grades 11 and 12. Now, EliteAri's a little older than me, right? He's old as fuck. So he did these a little bit longer. I was in 2017, I would have been in grade 11. I would have been watching the Crucible in class, being like, man, that Winona Ryder, never have I seen a prettier woman in my life. Has that opinion changed? We'll have to see when we delve into it. Yes, Black Lagoon Girl was in that class at EliteAri. I know you're dying to know. Crazy. Right. But yes, so I have the baggage of this. The way these things connect, the way Shakespeare and the Crucible connect, is it's a fucking play, Lamau. And there's a movie on it that I've seen. Also, I wanted episode 10 of Movie Night to be our first rewatch. And by we, I mean me. Because they were all new movies that I hadn't seen before, because that was like, oh, we're watching new movies. But now, slowly, I want to reintroduce doing potential rewatches for Movie Night as we continue forward, and 10 is a good number, and I have the weird OCD memes when it comes to that. So a bunch of things have congregated. This is kind of a test run for us watching plays as movies, because we don't want to read those fucking plays. We want to watch some fucking movies. Isn't that right, EliteAri?
True. Yep,
yes.
Absolutely.
Film's just better, Plays are sick. I only ever went to see one play in my life, and it was a fucking high school play, but I was not in high school yet, so I thought it was the coolest thing ever and didn't think it was corny or underproduced or anything like that. We got to go to a play, EliteAri. How about that?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I've seen High School Musical. Actually, is a play like, I don't even know what a play is. I've seen High School Musical, the musical, like an actual musical. I've seen Wicked. Wicked was really good. But other than that, I don't think I've seen anything.
Yeah, we gotta go. But anyway, so that's the background with me in this movie. I watched it in grade 11, and you know how everybody shits on whatever you're doing in English class. I was secretly like, man, this is fucking sick. I love this fucking movie. Yeah, and I held on to that. I think at some point when I was like 16 or 15, I would have been 16 in grade 11, I think. Well, for half of it, I guess, and 15 for the other half. You know how years work and such.
Right.
At some point, there is an old notes document that I still have on my phone, because that carries over into your new phones, and it's crazy, and I wish it didn't. But sometimes old notes pop up, and you're like, oh my God, get me out of this mindset. And there was like a top 10 films list, and I remember this was like 7 on it or something. I don't know if it would be 7 anymore. But I like this movie a lot, EliteAri. But yeah, so that was all built into this. So that's my personal history with it. I think because I don't want this to just be me monologuing about bullshit, I could have done a solo movie night for this. So this is my first rewatch of it ever, I think. I think I've definitely watched scenes. I remembered a lot of the line delivery in this movie. There were a lot of things that I kind of didn't remember, but I remembered a lot of it, especially for me, when I tend to forget all of Chainsaw Man a year later, even though I love it and stuff. I remembered a lot of this movie, so it stuck with me, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm calling into question.
Back in school,
did
you have to like write essays on this or anything, or was it just a part of just?
But I don't remember.
Okay, interesting.
We probably did, because I remember we read The Hunger Games in grade 10. We're going through the whole chronology, and we didn't analyze The Hunger Games. We had to write a short story about the Hunger. So you're basically writing Hunger Games fan fiction. I got an A. I'm just gonna say it right now. I got an A for that class.
Nice.
For this particular thing. And then the teacher expected me to get an A and everything else, and she was always pissing me off by hounding me about shit. But yeah, and you had to write a short story between like the lines of something that didn't exist, like between scenes, what happens in this moment or whatever. That's got to be the fucking
like ChatGPT.
Yeah, like exactly like that. Except I'm better and I got an A. I don't remember what we did for the Crucible, I'm going to be honest. When I think of that class, I think of Berserk, which is odd because my mind has retconned me having read Berserk then, but I actually read Berserk in the Christmas holidays after that year ended. But did you have this thing, EliteAri, where your grade 11 and 12 classes were basically one class, where you had the same teacher for both years and the same class for both years? And it was usually in the same classroom. And it was almost like one big year, but it was over 2 years.
Definitely not. I mean, we had because I did advanced English in 11 and 12, and we had 2 advanced English classes, but they both had very separate teachers who never talked to each other. And also from year 11 to 12, my teacher left the school or something. So then I got like a new teacher in year 12.
Okay.
Crazy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we had them. So my mind is all about Miss Winter's grade 11/12 English class. God, she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen besides Winona Ryder, EliteAri. But that's besides the point.
I've heard so much, yeah.
Should I bleep the name? Maybe not.
I don't know.
I think her name isn't Miss Winter anymore. Sad times, EliteAri. She got married. It's over for both of us. So nonetheless, thinking about Berserk, tying that in somehow, what the fuck are we doing here? The point is, before we get into more of my chicanery and my bloviating and telling EliteAri what the Crucible is about, and how it's all an allegory for a memery, we should get overall thoughts. Because my thought while watching this was, oh my god, without all the context that I remember from those classes, because I was listening to every word, this movie would be so fucking confusing. And I'm like, oh no, poor EliteAri. In the build up to this also, Chad, I was like, oh my god, like I had self-awareness, like why am I making EliteAri watch this? Like nothing has indicated that he would like this type of movie or this type of thing to me. And I'm like, just making him do it because it's a play and I want to do it before Shakespeare stuff. So were you adequately confused / what did you think overall, EliteAri?
I thought this was great. I'd give it like a 4 out of 5 or something. I don't know. But I was very. I would say starting off, I knew nothing. Where I was like, is this like a science fiction thing? Are they going to be
Oh my
witches
god, you didn't even know that much.
Like, no, I
do you
knew
know
nothing,
it's based off a true story, EliteAri? Crazy.
No, I did. I do now because it's like Salem witches I've heard of before.
Yeah.
Unless the Salem witch trials, I've always heard of that. Is that a fictional or like a non-fictional thing?
That's a non-fictional thing that this movie is heavily based on.
Sure. Okay.
I think there was a bloke called John Proctor who
that's
did get
happening.
executed, and I think there was an Abigail.
Sure. Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so when essentially I was the most confused when we got to the initial scene where all the children and women are like screaming in that room when the girl is like unconscious or whatever. You know what the scene I'm talking about? Like really early on where they're like,
exactly what you're talking about.
goody goody or something. And I'm like, well, what are all these words they're saying?
Yes.
Are they witches? Like, what's happening? I got no idea. But then I think I picked it up eventually. I figured out, oh yeah, the Salem witch trials. That's when everyone was like accused, you know, of being a witch or something. I thought they drowned witches or something. I thought that's what happened. Maybe that's separate.
No, that's part of
I think I got it by the end somewhat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We learned about this in English class.
Right.
But yeah, so he liked it. I just breathed this sigh of relief. I'm like, what a smart man EliteAri is.
Yes.
So yes, first of all, let's start with the goody. Goody apparently is just a term you use for women. It's like, it's like man.
Oh.
So it's like, because you would think it means to be good. But they're still called, still call Goody Nurse, who isn't a nurse. That's just their last name, which is also confusing.
Yeah, I figured that out. Yeah.
Yeah, but they still call her Goody Nurse. Like the judge dude still calls her Goody Nurse as she's like being taken away to be hung. And you'd think if he thought she was a Satan worshipping witch, he wouldn't be still calling her Goody. So I think it just is like what you call women, like when they're married, I guess. I think that might be it, because it's never Goody Abigail.
Right.
Or Goody Williams. Why did I think her name was Abigail Thorne? Because that's the YouTuber's name. That's Philosophy Tube's name. Okay. I had it in my mind.
Wait, you're telling me...
But yeah.
Wait, you're telling me Goody Proctor is not John's name?
That's not her first name, no.
Oh my god.
No.
Okay.
But yeah, because, you know these fucking plays, they always come with, like, sheets on the side that are, like, indexes for the words. When you read Shakespeare in school, there's, like, a translation on the side. There was that for the Crucible as well. It wasn't as dense, but it was like, oh, goody is a term for thing, and then the teacher would talk about it. So, yeah, I think that's what I remember. Now, I could be slightly off, and I almost certainly am, but vaguely I think it tracks for that. But, yes. Her name is Abigail Williams. That's blown my... It's been Abigail Thorne in my head. But that is the YouTuber. I don't even like Philosophy Tube videos. Williams. EliteAri, you got to ask me about Williams afterwards while it's even funnier, right? I'm not going to say that because it is somebody's name.
Okay.
Okay. It's a little tidbit. It's irrelevant. Let's move on. But yes, EliteAri liked it. So I guess the Salem witch trials are a big event, and whenever somebody uses the term witch trial, like you hear people say that, right? You watch Destiny videos.
Hunt, yeah.
People say witch hunt. Donald Trump saying he's getting witch hunted right now. I think that is all referencing The Crucible, the 50s play. This fucking play, Arthur Miller's play, did come out in the 50s.
I did wonder when it came out. It would
Arthur
impact
Miller,
a bit of
Crucible.
some of the criticisms and stuff of what they're saying.
Yes. Some questionable social values in the movie, in the play/movie, perhaps. But 1953. Now, in the 1950s, EliteAri, there was a thing called the Red Scare. You know about this?
Yeah, communism.
Oh, he's correct.
Right? Right, it is, isn't it?
But yes.
Oh, okay. Whew.
So Arthur Miller, I think, was tried for being a communist in America, where they're supposed to be land of the free and stuff. There's like one senator called like William.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't know if he's Williams or whatever. I'm getting
so did he write this before or after?
Afterwards.
He was like accused of
because he got stripped of something, like legally, like maybe his house or something, for potentially being a communist. And basically it was like, oh, there's like a witch hunt, just like the Salem witch hunt happening in America contemporaneously. So the whole story is like an allegory for that kind of. Now,
that's, you know what? When I was watching this, it did cross my mind that this is like an allegory for communism, but in a very different way. Which is with the judge guy. Yeah, I was like, oh, this judge guy is just like the. Have you read Animal Farm? Do you know anything about Animal Farm?
No, I haven't. I know.
It reminded me of like basically the one leader guy in that, where I'm like, oh, he's just like that, and it's like very similar. But not. I didn't think of the witch aspect at all. I just thought of him as being like a communist leader or something.
Yeah, in English class in grade 11, they would use the term mass hysteria a lot. It's about mass hysteria and sort of mob think and standing up for principles in the face of that and virtue and etc. etc. But yes, he got dinged for something because anybody in the arts would always be accused of being a communist. Now there's so there's a senator, and it's like the Senate, whatever his name is, trials or what it's called, where a bunch of people were put on trial. And now he was a pretty successful writer, I think, before this even came out, though I think this is his most famous play. So he was already like a high profile bloke. So he was like, oh, he's an arts dude and he probably has pretty left leaning social values. He's a fucking communist if ever I saw one, EliteAri, so we're going to put him on trial or something. But it was also a thing where you were like marked as a communist somehow. I think it like ties into John Proctor's name speech at his end, because it's like on your record. And this is in the 50s, but even in Mad Men, because we've got to bring that up somehow, there is a scene very similarly where in Mad Men, they're an ad agency and they get to do an ad for, or they're doing some sort of work with the US government and the army for something, for like a fighter jet or something to market it or something. Something, EliteAri, you don't need to know the plot line. And basically, Don Draper gets a background checked and he's not home. Well, he's actually divorced, and they go to his ex-wife's house and they sort of question her about his character. And one of like the firm questions is like, is he a communist, or does he have any communist leanings, or has he ever read any communist books or whatever? And it's like, oh, so even late, and this is in a later Mad Men season, so it's in like the late 60s, they're still asking these questions, and basically you would be like not allowed to work with the government if you had communist leanings. So it's an interesting little tidbit in US history, at least. They really hated them commies for a little while, yeah. Mass hysteria, you might say. But yes, that's a lot of the background, I think. So that's where, because I think most of the like the course, or what do you call them, the term that we did on the Crucible, was like mainly about allegory. It was like the main literary device we were studying.
Sure. And
this was the example. But fuck all this backstory stuff. Let's talk about the movie in some details. So there is a lot of thematic stuff that I was picking up, especially stuff that I hadn't picked up previously. So EliteAri, you weren't too confused. That's nice to know. We also learned in the class, and a lot of the context for this is that this is in puritanical Massachusetts before America is a country, but when it's still a colony, because they even say...
Oh God, I'm in Massachusetts right now.
Yes, I was going to bring that up somehow. EliteAri is currently in Boston. They reference Boston. The judge comes from Boston. And we were talking about this before we started recording, but it's in similar Black Sails times, and they talk about Boston and that all the time. They don't talk about piracy at all in this. What the fuck? Even though they are on the beach. Now, I remember them being like in the woods somewhere, in a little village in the woods, but they're on like the coast. That's crazy. That changes my perception entirely. But how
I
did
have no idea where this was set, when it was set. Like Initially, I thought, oh, is it modern day? But this is like an Amish community or something. Like they're living away from technology. But no,
Yeah.
it's just
No.
really old.
So the Puritans, EliteAri, they're a big fucking very strict Christian thingy. They suck. They're the worst. You're not even allowed to dance. That's evil.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of little cultural things like that throughout. Obviously we did a lot about the place of women in this society in our English class, etc. But yeah, so this is before America is
Yeah, that
federated.
kind of felt like the point to me.
Yeah. It kind of did to me this time. It definitely didn't last time, but I do want to talk about that. But America, like, because the governor, not the governor, the judge at some point says, like, His Royal Majesty's government is overseeing this. So they're still, like, they're talking about England, EliteAri, in America. Yeah, so it's all
They got
pretty
those
bad.
weird accents.
Yeah, but Massachusetts, I think, was particularly puritanical. Like, there's different, like, and part, like, because most of the, at this point, most of the people, or the white people in America, are on that coast. Not a lot of people in Los Angeles or whatever at this point. And I know, like, Massachusetts was very Puritan, and then there's other fucking sects of this dumb Christian shit, and as you go south or down the coast, it changes a little bit. But there's a specific sect here, and they're more about the very strict, sort of crazy, what we see in the movie type things, whereas others are more loose with the religion and whatever, and eventually there's some strife there or something. This is all history stuff. Fuck that. How do we structure talking about the actual movie, EliteAri? Do we go character by character? Do we go plot beat by plot beat? Do we go big scene by big scene? The acting was pretty good, huh, EliteAri? It was pretty cool.
Acting was great.
Yeah.
I like that scene at the end with John. He's yelling.
He's
I
good.
always love when people are yelling.
About his
they're being
name.
passionate.
I've definitely referenced that on stream before. But yeah.
I did wonder because there's a few things as I was watching. I feel like when they first mentioned John Proctor, I was like, I feel like I've heard this name before.
Yeah,
maybe just like a common name. I don't know. And also when I got to the speech at the end and he was giving that speech, I was like, this feels familiar. Like I don't know if it was from Kyle or from like just general media stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Pretty cool. I'm pretty cool. But yeah, that is like the number one thing that has always stuck out with me is that ending speech. But yeah, I don't want to talk about it yet. Let's go. Oh, let's start. Let's just fucking start at the beginning. All right. So we open with the girls in the forest, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So these girls
Are they witches?
So probably not EliteAri, I would say.
Okay.
So there's Tituba as a character. There's actually we did like a whole lesson on Tituba because progressive and stuff, you know. She's from Barbados, which is near America. It's one of those islands, near Jamaica, I think, and near you know, the fucking ones down there. She's obviously a slave. They still got that going on for another when we're America, we still got that going on for 150 years. So slavery ain't ending anytime soon. She's the only slave in the movie. But they definitely, like, the part of her characterization is that she's foreign and she's, oh, so foreigners are scary and they have witchy stuff going on. So the girls clearly all come to her. Now, I think the point here is that these women are so strict in their religious roles and their gender roles, etc., and they're so oppressed that they, like, seek any sort of outlet for any sort of fun or creativity or just letting go and not being so strict and stringent and shit. So that's why they like to do this. Plus, they're also just, like, dumb little girls, and they're making, like they are trying to do witchcraft, but it's kind of like, tee-hee, I want this boy to like me witchcraft, because they all say a boy's name. One of them, actually, ask me about Williams and one of the names that they say at the beginning or afterwards. All right, you gotta remember. Now that's all I can think about. But they're all saying boys' names as they throw it in, and they all want to. Abigail doesn't say a name, which is funny because she's the main bitch, and we know who she likes, EliteAri. But yeah, and then she's fucking crazy. She starts killing this chicken. She's got the blood on her face. It's EliteAri's picture on his media consumption thread.
Yep.
I wonder what you thought, like, in the moment this time. You're like, what the fuck am I watching, huh? What were you thinking?
I thought they were witches doing an actual sacrifice.
Yeah.
Because at the end, like, the guy comes in and he like sees the pot and he doesn't see the women, and I'm like, oh, are they invisible? Is it like are these like he can't see females in this world or something?
Yeah.
But that I don't know, it was a bit weird. But yeah, I also assumed this was like by the end of the movie, I'm like, okay, so they're like women, they're expressing all the suppressed feelings they can't feel when they're in the rest of the patriarchy. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I
feel
that's
like
what I took from it.
the whole performance. Now, obviously, it's them like taking power, kind of. And John Proctor even has a line about that later, where he's like you've given the kids the key to the kingdom or something. It's like these kid girls have like overtaken, like they've grasped power through any sort of agency they could by just taking up opportunity. But this is also, so I think like the base like sort of instinct that people have that's embodied in this first scene is sort of embodied throughout as they do like their performances in the court and stuff. It's just sort of like an outlet for them to be crazy because they're always supposed to be so strict. I think that tracks. Should we just talk about Abigail, EliteAri?
Yeah, what do you think about Abigail?
Actually, just a point. Funny, when you're in grade 11 class and that girl gets naked at the beginning of the movie, that went over well in class.
Sure.
We liked that a bit. But should we talk about Abigail? Should we just go? Abigail's uncle, who I completely forgot that they were related, Reverend Paris. Now I remember a lot of these character names just because I had to read them.
Oh boy, wait a minute. Who is related to Abigail? Because I don't know what you're talking about.
So the dude that runs the church in the town is Abigail's uncle.
Yep.
Yes, that's who I'm talking about.
Okay,
He finds him at the beginning.
Yep.
His daughter is also the one that wants to fly all the time. Tiki, funny little girl. She's one of the first, and she's like one of the littlest girls that are afflicted. The other one is Ruth, who is the Putnam's daughter.
I have a question then. So at the beginning the girl is unconscious or whatever. So that wasn't witchcraft? She's just
she was just fucking faking it. I was like, just pinch her. She'll wake up if you pinch her.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, but you used to do that as a kid, like pretend you like passed out or dead to fuck with people around you.
No, never. I would never lie.
Yeah, but they would always shake you, and I would start smiling. So I was like, man, this girl's good. She was much better than me when I was a kid. But yeah, just tickle her or pinch her, you fucking dumb reverend prick. But yeah, it's funny when she opens her eyes when Abigail like gets on top of her and starts threatening her. Funny. These evil little girls. But yes.
It is funny how like me watching, I like carried over the idea that they were witches for way too long. Like even now, I'm just trying to reframe some things where I'm like, I guess they weren't witches, were they? Like that, for instance. I thought she was, when she went on top of her, she was like she was the actual witch and everyone else were like fake witches and she woke her up somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all these weird conceptions. But
part of the,
they're not.
Yeah. There's an interesting thing, and I actually talked about this in Japan's Long Stay, which EliteAri did watch apparently, last time, where I talked about how it was like painfully like traditional or like conventional in some senses, where like all the bad guys were ugly and all the good guys were pretty, and it's like, oh, like I don't think you get to kind of do that in modern stories because it's so on the nose. There are some bits like that where it's like you sort of have to suspend your disbelief for the silly, I guess, plot device of them not being able to like figure out that she's faking it at the beginning, and how it, I guess, kind of doesn't make sense. It's like, yeah, pinch her or tickle her or something.
No, it definitely makes sense. These are religious people. They believe that the devil is everywhere, right?
EliteAri
pretty much. It's what it felt like.
Defend it. Okay, that's good. But there were parts of it. There were other parts of it where I was like there's a part where Reverend Paris cries when Tituba says like, oh, the devil tells me to cut his throat every night, and it's clearly like her actual desire coming out. It's again like the repression coming out because she's a fucking slave, and she's like, oh, but I never do it even though the devil begs me to cut his throat, and he starts crying and stuff because he's so moved because he thinks his slave actually like loves him and stuff, and he's so fucking stupid and like unself-aware. It's like, man. And there's also times where like the girls will look on in fear and shake and stuff, and not when they're acting, but when like the one girl is nearly turning against her, and it's like, it's so on the nose where it's like, this doesn't happen in modern storytelling, and it's interesting that we've sort of gotten away from some of these more traditional aspects. There were some aspects of that came out. The movie came out in 1996, EliteAri, so it's a little old too. Were you born in 1996, EliteAri?
No, I wasn't. 1 year later.
He was dead, all right? He was dead in 1996, just like me. 1997. God, EliteAri's old, chat. Can you believe that?
Yep.
I like kind of doing that vague shit. All right, I love Abigail, EliteAri. Do you love Abigail?
She was interesting. I had
so
passionate
evil.
feelings of hatred towards her, I guess.
It's funny that I never have that. Now, obviously, I'm being funny now because Now, let's talk about Winona Ryder's attractiveness in this movie. She does look, now, I'm pretty sure she's like 21 in this movie. She does look very young, right? So I was allowed to like her when I was 11. I didn't like her as much in this one, aesthetically at least. She's still the prettiest woman of all time, you know?
Interesting. Sure, okay.
In other photos I've seen, etc., etc. But also, you know me, EliteAri, these crazy bitches, these especially character crazy bitches, I love them. They're the best characters in everything. Oscar number 1. Abigail number 2. Let's go. But yeah, it is interesting because I was memeing, but I don't know if I ever hated her in this movie. I guess there's almost there's like a smirk as I see her do evil things, and I'm like, this bitch, God, she's great. I will say, in this movie throughout, there is a remarkable amount of nuance in the characters that I didn't think were there. I thought it was like very black and white because it's an old play, EliteAri. It's got to be dumb. It's old. But going back to it, I was like, oh my God, there's so much going on here. I think that speaks to the writing throughout where it's like I realized towards the end, EliteAri, now this is the corniest video essay line you've ever heard in your life, but the Crucible, EliteAri, is about choices.
Oh my God.
But they've got like choices in that are actually like moral dilemmas of like, this is a tricky situation. I don't know what the character's gonna do, and I don't know what I would do in this situation. And it's I feel like in stories a lot of the time, even when tension is tried to be made around that, it never works. Like, should Eren genocide the world? Probably not, and everybody probably thinks that he shouldn't, except for the crazy peoples or whatever. And you do have sympathy for him in retrospect, and you can sort of see his argument, but you never feel in the moment and Eren never really has like a choice, you know, because he's kind of externalized, and you're not really seeing from his perspective when he's making these choices, really. You're only seeing him afterwards in retrospect, etc., etc. But I don't know. I feel like The Crucible is one of the few stories where I like feel the weight of the decisions, more so in other things where it's like, the good guy's going to do the good thing and the good thing's kind of obvious. Even let's take the end of The Last of Us, for example, where it's like Joel's decision. I feel like everybody's like, yeah, save Ellie, because you're emotionally invested. And even if the moral dilemma itself is very interesting to think about, in the moment of the story, it isn't almost. It's almost interesting in retrospect because it's like, oh, there was a dilemma there. But in the moment, because of how you are positioned to feel, it's just like, Joel, get her out of there.
All right, you got to give some examples, because I didn't get. I got this at one scene, but I don't really know.
Well, should he sign his fucking name, EliteAri? But should he do it? Oh my goodness. I guess because I did have this epiphany towards the end, but there was one before that where I also thought that. I guess because I knew he wasn't going to do it and he was going to die. I was like, what a decision. There was another one, but I can't remember it now. So
I'm trying to think. The one, like the thing that stood out to me about choices was what the judge's choice was going to be, particularly. Or I guess the woman, also his wife's choice of like whether she's going to tell the truth or lie at that moment.
Oh yes, that was the exact one. The wife in the courtroom, and I completely forgot. I was so suspensed, EliteAri. I completely forgot what she said because I knew there was a point where the judge did doubt Abigail. And I wasn't sure if that continued after that scene, so I was on EliteAri. It was the first time I'd ever seen this scene in my life. This like an hour ago when I watched it. I was fucking. And then the Daniel Day-Lewis, who plays John Proctor, he's like a famous actor. I don't think I've ever seen him in anything else. But Lamau, he's a famous actor, and I saw him as John Proctor. What an actor this bloke is after that, where he turns around and he doesn't scream it, and he screams. He can scream. He screams throughout this movie to great effect. And he's just like, he just turns around and he says, I confessed it. I feel like I've been in that position and I've said that line to somebody when I don't know how or that. I feel like I've been in that exact same position where somebody's brought in and they have to say a thing, but they don't say the thing. And I said it exactly like that. And so it's like, is every human being just the same, EliteAri? Did Arthur Miller also one time in his childhood also have a situation like this and say the exact same thing, and then he portrayed that perfectly in his hit seminal play, The Crucible? And maybe all people are the same and we all have the same experiences and et cetera, et cetera. But it was just a crazy moment of acting in that moment. Did you also get it from that specific moment, or am I just reading into this? Was this very personal to me, EliteAri?
Yep, very personal to you. I didn't get any.
Okay.
I thought he was good, engaging. I didn't feel like, oh wow, he's acting out something that has been in my past experience before.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Well, I thought it was perfect in the moment. I was like, oh my God. And then I reflected on it a little bit and
I thought that was a very engaging scene. I
Yeah.
thought that. Like
Yeah.
I was like, I had no idea what she's gonna do. Like these people are facing there. This is the critical moment where the judge can decide. Like the whole story can change here. Like what's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
The I think a part of me also realized that everybody, now this is incredibly easily evident and kind of obvious in retrospect, but I hadn't thought about it, was that everybody makes the convenient decision, and the whole point is that at the end Proctor doesn't make the convenient decision for himself. Selfishly, they all make the convenient decision. I guess except for his wife also, because I guess it's hard to determine what's convenient to her in the scene we were just talking about. But like Tituba, when she realizes she has an out by confessing, and basically every character that confesses is sort of also taking that of like, yeah, fuck it, I'll confess, I'll sign my name to the sheet of paper, etc., is saying forever that I confess to doing the fucking... They talk about writing in the devil's book, Alita. Are you familiar with this trope? Apparently the devil has a book and you write your name in it, Lamau.
No.
That was something we learned in that
I
English
kind of
class.
assumed that from what they were saying. Yeah. Okay.
But it's like a big folklore thing, especially in these Puritan idiots. But why the fuck would this dumb devil prick need a book, EliteAri? These fucking Puritans. Bunch of fucking idiots.
You can't rationalize religion, all right? That's part of the problem in this society. That
But he's got a flame book, all right? And he literally comes to you in like the night or something, Tituba was saying, and they were believing it. But yeah, so when she has like an out, she's like, yes, I want to be with God. And she's very clever in that moment to get herself out of it and shift the blame. Because the girls do that too in shifting the blame. Because initially all they have to do is admit to dancing. And I think one of them even says like, oh, we'll just get whipped. I think it always, the voice of dissent is always Mary, I think her name is, which is the new girl that lives with the Proctors. Abigail used to live with the Proctors. You picked that one up, right, Alita? I guess you would have had to have.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
But you have like lived-in help. That was another thing we learned in English class before reading the play, right? But yeah. And also they live like a little bit out of the village. Like they don't live in Salem, but on the outskirts with the other dude. Oh my God, EliteAri. Who? The old dude? Oh wait, did you just say it?
Yep.
Okay.
I saw him and I was like, this is
it
Eamon,
blew
right?
my fucking mind
Yeah,
after the fifth
it's crazy
scene
how young he is and
where
how,
I was
yeah,
like,
it's
oh
crazy.
my God, it's Maester Eamon. Because I always thought John Proctor's wife was Catelyn Stark, EliteAri. I always thought it was that actress. Until a few years ago, I looked it up and I was like, oh, it's not. So to then realize that there was an actual Game of Thrones connection, I lost my fucking shit in the middle of this movie.
He's nothing like Eamon at all. You can see his like face
speaks
somewhat similar. It's
exactly
crazy.
the same
He does.
though, EliteAri. With the way his mouth shape moves, like all I can think of is the egg speech where he's like, "Egg, I dreamed I was old." Remember when Maester Eamon said that on? Well, it wasn't on a boat in the show, huh? And he's remembering. Oh my goodness, Game of Thrones, wow. But yes, fucking blew my goddamn mind, EliteAri.
Yep, same here.
His name is Peter Vaughan. He was Giles Corey. And he gets crushed for
What does that
contempt of
mean?
court.
Wait, who's Guile? What's a Corey?
Well, that's his fucking
Or is that
name.
his name?
I don't know. Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, okay.
Giles Corey.
Wait, is that the actor's name?
No. Peter Vaughan is the actor's name. Keep up, EliteAri. Giles Corey is the character.
That was the character's name. Okay. All good.
Remember, his wife is the one that dies at the end with John Proctor. The other one, besides the nurse.
Oh, I loved her. She was the pig lady, right?
Yeah, she was laughing.
Yeah, that was great.
Girls.
She wouldn't give up. She's in court and she's talking about like, I know pigs my whole life or whatever. Yeah,
and that's how she predicted them. It was funny how the main judge had like a good judge on his shoulder and a bad judge on his shoulder. Yeah. The bad judge reminded me outrageously of something in Black Sails, and I can't put my finger on it.
I don't know.
It might be
think about that.
Woods Rogers' second in command. You remember that fella? Israel Hands cut his throat.
There was a guy in this who reminded me of it. He had a name. He was like the guy who was doubting someone originally, doubting the religious guy, I think. I don't know any character names in this whatsoever. He got called a few times. He's like tall. He's like a bit scary, a bit big. I don't know. You know what? We're not going to figure this out.
I'm trying
Too many
to think.
characters.
You're not talking about the first dude that shows up who ends up doubting, like...
No. I like that guy.
Process at the end. Yeah. Oh, what's his name? Reverend Hale. All right, I don't remember these fucking names.
Yes.
He's definitely seemed familiar too. I'm now on Thingy, looking through Reverend Paris, not that prick. Reverend Hale. Rob Campbell is this actor's name. Is he in anything else? Nope, I'm not seeing anything I know here.
That's who it was. Wait, was it? Let me Google this. Thomas Putnam. That's who I thought was the guy who reminded me of Rogers' like second in command. He kind of looks like him, and he was kind of like a bit like scary. I don't know.
Well, yeah, he's like Thomas Putnam is he's like the rich dude in town. He's buying up everybody's land, EliteAri, after they die. What a prick. But yeah, he was in Stuart Little, apparently. Maybe that's where you know him from. Sleepy Hollow. These are probably all voices.
No, I don't know the guy. It just reminds me of Woods Rogers' guy.
Yeah, but we both got different reminders of that dude from different people in the same movie. That's why.
Crazy.
That's
what are the odds?
But where are we up to? Abigail's the best. I think we stopped on that, right?
Yeah, she's passionately hateable to me, and she's just lovable to you, right?
Oh yes.
You empathize with her, or do you like empathize with or do you hate her? I guess.
No, I don't hate her at all, not even a little bit. But she is evil.
So when she had that scene at the end with John in the cell, and she's
my God, he should have run away. What was he doing?
Really? No, I was in the complete opposite thing. I was like, if I was him, I would pretend to be with her so that I could just quickly kill her or something, you know? Like, I'd let her set me free, then I'd kill her.
That's like the scene that makes me like her the most.
Oh my God.
I'm like, she just wanted him the whole time. She just did it all for love, and it was vengeance. A whore's vengeance, he says. And it was, but it's beautiful.
How is it beautiful? How are you not frustrated?
Imagine if a girl killed like 50 people for you, EliteAri. Are you not in love? I am. We must just be different people, EliteAri.
It's very interesting.
But yeah, it's crazy.
I have to think about it, you know?
One of the most interesting things that I remembered it being very one-sided, like an Abigail romance. Obviously, there is, like, they did sleep together. Obviously, the English teacher having to explain that to the grade 11 class was funny, teehee. I'm just remembering everything now, EliteAri. Happier days.
Yep.
But, but he, like, kisses her back at the beginning, and then he pushes her off. And he, like, is flirting with her at the beginning. These are all things I'd forgotten. So it is, like, he is kind of leading her on a little bit, but then he's very firm at the end. But it's clear that he actually does like her, which is... so. And this is a whole dynamic that I didn't remember at all. But, like, John Proctor is, like, an atheist. And he's like, I ain't never seen no devil. I ain't never seen God whisper in my ear. I don't believe in none of this fucking shit. Even though he says, like, the Lord's Prayer at the end. But that's more of a symbolic thing because it's going to turn the town against them entirely.
Yeah.
And he even, because I think it is more, I don't think he's an atheist. I think he is some sort of tacit Christian because at some point, like, Reverend Hale is questioning him and his wife about whether or not they believe witches actually exist. And he's like, it says it in the Bible, so it must be true. But he kind of says it tacitly, so it's like, does he actually believe it? But I think he does believe that, but he's just like, that's not happening here.
He's like an atheist who is not not ready to be so confident in their beliefs.
He doesn't have the vocabulary.
But I love
to
that
understand.
scene where where she's talking about like how if I'm a witch then I don't believe in them basically. Because I know that I am not a witch, and I'm like, oh man, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, where are we going with this? Oh, he's like an atheist, and Abigail is too, and they sort of bonded over this because she kind of sees through the Puritan bullshit, and he was sort of, when she lived with them, it seems like they sort of both like laughed about everybody else around them, and potentially also about his wife. Oh, and the greatest scene of all time, EliteAri, is at the end, and something else I completely forgot, when the wife like realizes her faults. And it's about like forgiveness, and she's like because she starts blaming herself for the adultery basically by saying like the only reason you cheated was because I wasn't giving you like a cold home. She uses that phrase a bunch of times because she's like a cold Puritan like wife, and like he wants a fun girl. And it's sort of like religion is the problem here because she couldn't express herself, and she's talking about how she expresses her love, etc. And it's interesting because that whole conversation is sort of about forgiveness, where she's like, because he asks, because he thinks maybe he's gonna kill himself, Lamau. You know what I mean? In that moment, and he's like, I would like your forgiveness or something. And she's like, it's not my forgiveness to give or something. Like, you have to forgive yourself is basically the message. And him forgiving himself is basically letting himself die at the end, which sort of comes into play in the scene afterwards. But then she starts blaming herself and has to sort of forgive herself. Now, something that isn't in the movie, and I don't remember if this is real life history that my English teacher told us, or if it's written at the end of the play, because I think there might be a like, what do you call it, an epilogue, but it's only like a line on each character. You know how movies do that sometimes, or pieces do
well, they had
sometimes.
one a little bit at the end.
Yeah, they just had the one bit about the thing. But it says, like, Goody Proctor remarried, and she had another kid, and she also had the John's kid that she was pregnant with at the end, and she sort of lives a happy life or something. And then there was, like, Reverend Paris is dismissed from the court and lives his life in shame or something, etc., and it goes down. Like, the bad guys got come up as... Abigail gets away, because she's a queen. There's no, like... that is a piece of the movie that I really like, is that there's no Abigail vengeance scene, which kind of fits with the...
Yeah, we never see her again.
Yeah, because the theme of we see her, like, running away, and she gets on that boat, and oh my goodness, she goes and meets... she goes to fucking Nassau, she becomes a pirate. She is Anne Bonny, greatest story of all time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that because it kind of fits with the theme too, because they talk about, like, how all of this is actually just vengeance, because Proctor didn't leave his wife for Abigail. But yeah, and then if we took vengeance on her by having her be mauled by the people after they realize that she had lied to them the whole time, that wouldn't really fit thematically. And I like that she just gets away. And I don't like punishment, EliteAri. I think I'm realizing this. And I don't want to.
So you didn't like John dying?
No, not at all. I thought you were like, Jon Snow. Who the fuck are you talking about? John Proctor, you fucking idiot.
I remember that guy. Yeah.
I was onto something EliteAri, but I forgot it now.
Vengeance. Abigail's free. She got away.
Yes. Oh, another Game of Thrones reference. When the main judge is told, like, that she fled in the night or whatever, it reminded me exactly of Stannis finding out Melisandre left in the season 5 finale. Yeah. And it's like, it's like the realization of, like, you fucked up entirely. And it's like, yep, you just killed your daughter, Lamau, executed a bunch of people, and it was all for nothing because she abandoned you, Lamau. And that happened in the Crucible too.
So can we talk about the judge guy?
Yeah.
What a guy that guy is. What's going on with him? Do you think he is... Yeah, what a performance indeed. I agree.
So many of his lines. The rope line, I think I said that to you earlier today. I was like, rope. That's how he says it. It's funny.
And what does he want? What are his motivations? Do you think he really believes? Surely, I took it that he doesn't actually believe in these witches and stuff, and he's just doing it for the sake of, like, fulfilling his duty as being, like, some high member in society or something, right? Or do you think he really believes in what he's doing?
Yeah, I think he believes it, but I think there's definitely internal conflict in him. First of all, he says swamp really cool too. That's another one. I'll get to the bottom of this swamp. It was so cool when he said it. That was one of the ones that I remembered as vividly as anything I remember in my life.
I should say quickly, when I first saw him, I thought he was Ian McDiarmid, like Palpatine from Star Wars, but he definitely he doesn't look like him or anything. He just sounded like him initially. But
I definitely thought he looked similar, but I had looked him up and I couldn't really see anything that seemed familiar. We're talking about the judge, whether or not he believes it. I think he sort of wavers, and I think that's the interest in his character of he almost seems approachable at some points. But there are also just moments of like, like when they basically do the petition where, like, these 91 people stand with the accused or whatever, and he's just like, arrest every one of them. And it's like, this dude's the worst. And then there are some times where he's like, where he seems like he can be reasoned with, and he has, like, his number 2 in command there that's, like, constantly wary the whole time. And And they seem to have
Yep.
some sort of backstory. Actually, to touch, because that kind of ties in, there does seem to be history between characters, which is really interesting, and it's only implied in like brief snippets. And the
Like
Abigail,
when he calls him Thomas or something.
yeah, that's exactly it. Also, Thomas, remember that's from Black Sails too.
Yep.
The Abigail and John Proctor thing was like that too, where all of what I went on this monologue a few minutes ago, but all about them like seemingly being like kindred spirits who sort of see through the bullshit of the society they live in, is sort of implied in like one scene in a few lines, and it's like, oh, it makes sense why they would like be together and why they should be together and why if society wasn't this fucked up and had made them who they were and it made this whole situation arise, maybe they could have been together. Maybe John in a modern world could have actually got divorced instead of being in this marriage thing forever and whatever. And would he, and it's also interesting to think about if he had a choice at the beginning, would he have actually done it? Because I kind of think he might have at the beginning. I've seen stories where people leave their like of age wife for a much younger woman, and it always ends horribly. At least that's how all the marriages end in Mad Men that are like that. But these idiots do it every time. Maybe we'll do that someday, EliteAri. We'll be 40 and marry a 20-year-old. Sounds fun, right?
No comment.
So yeah, the history there and the implication there is very clever writing, I thought. But yeah,
I agree.
The judge has some standout moments, especially when he's slowly turning on Abigail, and it's like, oh, the tension here is fucking incredible. And Reverend Hale,
I have one note on that. That's like one of my 3 notes.
Yeah, go ahead.
How like there is the big scene where it's like, is he going to turn on Abigail, and is this the moment where finally we'll get a happy ending? You know, like he'll see through it. He'll decide, okay, no, yeah, well, not happy for you, but happy for everyone else in the world, I guess. But the thing is that in that moment, I'm like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, please, you know, make the right decision, make it. Come on, we want everyone to be safe. We want John's wife to be happy. But it's kind of goes against the entire point of everything, where it's like this is just the single man who's in power, who's like got control over everyone. And it's like, why are we cheering for him to make the right decision? If he does make the right decision, what does that even mean? Like, the society's not changed. Like, we're just rooting for this man.
Yeah, the problem is more systemic.
It's pointless. Yeah, it's kind of like if the movie ended with his decision to be like, you know what, there are no witches here, and she's pretending. Like, we achieved nothing. Like, we're not going to feel like satisfied. And it's like, oh, thank God this man saved us from like the witches.
Yeah.
Like, it was just the difference in what I'm feeling in that moment, and like the overarching kind of story is interesting.
It is funny because there is a scene early on where they talk about society, kind of thematically, and it's interesting, especially when applied to everything else, where it's like, it's very early. I think it's the first scene Goody Nurse is in, and she's the one that talks about society. But it's she says like something to the effect. John Proctor later says in that scene, like because Hale is also introduced in this scene, I think, and he's like, I hear you're a learned man or whatever, a man of sense, and I hope you bring sense to this town at last or something. And it's sort of, it reflects sort of the societal experiment type thing, where John Proctor can almost be read as like a libertarian at the beginning, where he sort of wants to be left alone, and he sort of has his outcropping way out next to the Giles land or whatever. That was his name, right? Yes. Maester Aemon's name. And then Goody Putman or whatever the fuck is over there too, trying to steal our land all the time, etc., etc. And it's sort of like society as a concept, and sort of the idea of almost a bigger community leading is the only way we can sort of lead to this mass hysteria type stuff. And that's brought back. How do we get here? We were talking about the judge, I think.
Judge.
The society.
He's the tip of the patriarchy.
Yes, he's the institution in this society. And I guess the society and the institution is fundamentally flawed is kind of the point, right? This Christian shit is bad. This king shit is bad. And they sort of have trials, but they're self-evidently ridiculous when they're like, well, there's no use for lawyers in this situation because it's an invisible crime, EliteAri. And they sort of reason through that, and it's like
communism.
Yeah. I guess, yeah. Because there's another scene, because we already kind of touched on the pigs one and how stupid that was. But there was like, there gets to a point where like somebody sees somebody as like a flame gets big, and they're like, oh, that must be a witch. And somebody's fucking wood falls off their
Yeah.
fucking cart, and they're like, that bitch is a witch because we made eye contact and stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
I kind of want to jump to
I
another
love the one of the
thematic
flame
thing,
where the guy's like waving. It's just so funny.
The oh yeah, because that was the old man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of want to jump to time now, EliteAri, but that's a whole different thematic point, and I feel like we didn't come to a conclusion, or you might have wanted to say something, or where are we at in this conversation?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I remember talking about the judge, one of the,
okay.
I think the bad judge on his shoulder or whatever. What was it? I think I wrote it down. He had like one line to crack me up, like the one funniest thing in this movie. Where is it? It was basically, I don't have the note, but it was something like he made like some really grand point, and then he like laughed at himself really proudly. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
It slightly rings a bell, but I cannot I have not had an epiphany in detail that has reminded me of
Oh,
this
I found it. Okay. He was like, so you are innocent to what a witch is, then how do you know you are not one?
Yeah, and he thought he was
and
so
then he like
clever,
laughs to himself and he nodded,
yeah.
and then he's looking at the crowd. It was so funny. Man.
That was to that was to Goody Giles, or whatever her name was. Mace Raymond's wife. The pig girl, yes.
Yes.
But yeah, there were little rhetorical moments like that were wacky.
Yep.
Time, EliteAri. Let's talk about time. There is
yeah, we got time. We got 10 minutes left. All right, or 15.
Oh my fucking god. EliteAri has to go. So we gotta speed through some things. Fuck. There's a it's sort of the pendulum thing in the movie where it's sort of like Abigail has moments of realization that everything is turning against her, where like the crowds were very fervorous and for them at the beginning, and then they slowly start to wane as it gets increasingly out of control. And I feel like this is how everything in the world works, so it's a good thematic and poignant message. But particularly the scene where she tries to accuse Reverend Hale's wife, and the judge is just like, what is his exact phrase? Do you remember? He's like, he doesn't say you're wrong, but he's like, you're mistaken maybe, or rethink this or something, and he just is not budging at all. So it's sort of like she's realized the extent of her power, and it's kind of interesting.
Walking away from her.
Yeah, it's directly before that is like she's walking through the street and everybody's sort of walking away from her. It's basically, and then her uncle gets like a knife in the door and sees a bunch of shady characters like entering and looking at him, and it's like, yeah, if this goes on too long, there's going to be a fucking revolution. And that's kind of the point at the end with their speech, and because everybody's like, God bless you, Goody Nurse, or whatever she's going to hang, whereas we've seen them like cheering on the hangings. I feel like this just happens even in like dumb fucking these spaces we inhabit where it's about media or whatever. Things will sort of be fervorously believed for a second, and then things will go back to normal and people will pretend that they never actually were involved in anything that happened in that regard. It's just thinking about like the anti-SJW phase of the internet from like 2014 to 2017 or whatever. And now people pretend they won't win it. And then right after that, we had the thing where everybody became a communist for a few years, and now everybody's like, that's stupid. I feel like it's just we sort of go with these. It is sort of a mob mentality, groupthink type thing of like, executions, we hate the devil, and then like, oh, it's gone on for a little. The judge has a line about this that sort of is emblematic of this, where he's like, your wife is safe for a year, because which is funny. Because it's like it's almost the abortion argument where she has an innocent life in her that needs to be protected. So even if she is compact with the devil, the baby is innocent, so we can't kill her, at least until she has the baby. And his line there is like, a year is a long time. And obviously in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, she's completely safe because in a year this shit'll all be over. I think that is the commentary on this time thing of like, if you can just like wait it out for like a few months, like it'll pass and people forget about this, and you just can't get caught up it being one of those first executions of EliteAri. That's the message I'm trying to get at.
That is great. That really, I wonder, it probably doesn't say anything, but I wonder if that characterizes the judge then. If he's like, he knows that this is all going to pass away eventually, and he's talking about, like in that scene, he's like, yeah, your wife will live forever, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. I feel like it kind of fits with the way I see him.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking more thematically than precisely to the character, but yeah, he's
Who cares
old.
about
He's
themes, Kyle,
gone
right?
through things. Yes. This one is pretty thematically dense. I don't know. I kind of like the themes in this one, EliteAri. This isn't Chainsaw.
I like the plot.
The plot was good too. God, such tense scenes. Anything else we should go over quickly before we have to abandon this review? Maybe I could stay on after you leave, EliteAri. I'll shit talk you after you.
Yeah, you could. How did you feel about religion in this? Were you like frustrated, or were you like, it's a useful tool here, to manipulate people? Like all these children, they probably don't believe in religion, or they don't think it's true, or whatever. They're not old enough. So they're like abusing the power to like get what they want and punish the people they don't like.
I mean,
it was
useful
in that sense, but on the other hand, it's like people are suffering because of it.
Yeah, it was crazy and wacky.
Like it's a means for the the unpowerful or whatever to get power, right?
But I think part of the point is that they lose their power in the end, right? It's kind of, I guess that's more of the systemic thing of like, Abigail's power only will ever go this far because she is not allowed to be a judge because she's a woman.
Sure.
Yeah. I think the convenience thing is also interesting because that sort of plays into it. I've completely lost my train of thought. What was I going to talk about in convenience in relation to what you just said?
Yes.
Yes.
The abuse of power. It's convenient that they can pretend to be witches.
Yeah, I guess it is.
It's convenient they faint every time.
It was going into something else. I don't think it was related to the girls.
But that girl couldn't faint.
Yes, that one. That was also another one where I'm like, just fucking fake it. But she couldn't do it, EliteAri, okay? The pressure was on.
Too much pressure.
Yeah. But yeah. I feel like there's so many other like little moments. I wish I had actually I didn't finish watching the film a minute before we recorded this so I could make some notes and talk about some.
Well, you want to blast through a bunch of random small things I've got, which are nothing at all. They're nothing. They're not even notes. Let's see. We earn a writer, whatever her name is. She's in Stranger Things. Oh, crazy.
She is apparently.
The opening. Is bad. She's a lot older, but she feels the exact same in this. Where I'm like, she acts the same way. She has the same expressions.
Is she evil in Stranger Things?
She's crazy. I wouldn't say she's evil. She's also not crazy, but she acts a bit crazy. She's similar in the way she acts here, I guess, but I don't know. No, she's not. I don't know.
Yeah.
She feels very familiar, is what I can say.
She's a very famous actress. She's in a bunch of Stranger Things. So
yeah, I've only seen her in Stranger Things than this.
I've only seen her in this ever.
Initially,
there
was some bad compositing in this movie. It was funny. Not CGI, but just like in the house looked different to out of the house or something. I don't know what they did there. That looked weird.
I don't remember any of this.
Cults and stuff. The women, the invisible. We talked about that.
Oh my God, Ryder is a fake name, EliteAri. Winona Laura Horowitz. I thought Winona Ryder was too cool of a name for it to be real. I knew it, EliteAri. Things are never as cool as they seem. Anyway,
Horowitz is a pretty cool name, isn't it?
Horowitz. There was a shitty wrestler named Horowitz, Barry Horowitz. He lost all the time. That was the joke. You don't want to be like him. But Ryder.
Yeah, no, I hate losing.
Yes.
Old Man Eamon, I've heard that. Down Main Girls Abby. John Proctor, actor, feels familiar. Talking about Harvard existed apparently. I didn't know Harvard was that old. It was like, oh, you studied at the College of Harvard or something. I was like, oh my God, it's around that old. Jesus, no wonder it's like respected. Confused in the goodie scene, confessing to witchcraft means you won't be hanged. That's a strange dynamic. I guess they comment on that eventually.
Yeah. It's part of the corruption, basically. Oh, the
judge really frustrated. I was like, were people just stupid back then? How could a room of educated men believe that women are faking fainting? How ridiculous. Anyway, criticism of religion, I guess. I also, like, we talked about, like, when this takes place. I guess it makes more sense with the communism and his personal history. But it feels like if this was a story that came out today, I think it would be kind of meaningless, where it's like the things that it's criticizing are kind of, like, gone. They don't have much power over this world, the modern, like, faithless world, I guess, with women with power and everything, and I don't know.
Well,
but it makes sense in its context.
I think it still has relevancy. It's forever relevant, EliteAri. It's about...
Well, I guess that's one of my, not criticism, but I feel like it isn't forever relevant. Like, what do you think is relevant about it? I think it's relevant only in knowing the history of humanity. If you were to watch it now as a new child born who doesn't know the world, like, I would say it's not really that relevant.
I think everything we've kind of talked about with, like, the pendulum stuff and time, it is the more sort of removed themes. Because there is a difference between... But I don't know if my read on it is that like the main thematic core is about women or something, because I think you've said that a few times.
Sure.
Where I think it is more about the mass hysteria.
Well, you were talking about how it's an allegory, right?
Yeah.
For mass hysteria, right? Is what
Yeah.
you're saying. Okay, sure, that makes sense. It's that's a timeless kind of thing. It is interesting. Because usually I have never really thought about it, but usually an allegory is a made up story, right? But it's funny how this story is based on nonfiction as well, and how the allegory is just the
well, I think
like
allegory,
a layer on top of it. I don't know.
Allegory in the sense that we studied in our English class was just this is a story that is a parallel to another story type thing where there's a connection drawn. So it's basically sort of an argument about how the Red Scare trials thing is bad because the witch trials are bad. And it's sort of like just basically showing how they're the same.
Yeah, makes sense.
Which would seemingly make it very not relevant. It would be just for these, like that specific point in time. But I think like it's been disproven because people constantly talk about witch hunts all the time and try to further parallel it to whatever's happening to them.
Right. Yeah.
Which would almost go against the theme about they're just using it because it's convenient to them. But I guess Arthur Miller was kind of conveniently using it to his ends. But I guess he thought he was morally in the right, and he probably was. So I guess that would be okay, because sometimes the right thing is convenient to you. So maybe convenient.
You've changed my mind. It is forever. It's forever relevant.
Yeah,
I think I think it is. Because my disconnect is thinking about, like, if you don't know about the Salem witch trials and you watch this, will you still feel the same way about the message? I feel like you probably would.
Yeah, I think kind of. I think in the play, or again, it might be just the book of the play where it has the little like translation constantly, but that definitely has like a chapter at the beginning that is sort of like a context chapter. It's probably not a chapter, it's probably like 3 pages. And that definitely mentions the Salem witch trials, and it definitely mentions like Arthur Miller's personal connection to it. So as in being prompted by that, because that might have not been just a version of that, but that might have also been attached to the actual play. Like, what if in the advertising for the original play that was, like, written in the, like, you go and sit in your seat and you have a little pamphlet and it has that written?
Yeah.
But then I guess that's a separate piece of media, or is the whole experience of entering the theater then the one piece of media? Crazy. But yeah.
Yep. All right.
Was that all your notes?
No, I got plenty more.
Keep going.
We'll see what's relevant. John and his wife make compelling arguments. That's if you say I'm a witch, then I'm not a witch. Yeah, I agree. I said, thank God religion has no power in our world. I'm very glad.
Not entirely true, but
I would say it's almost entirely true. Like in a legal sense or whatever, it's like
yes, and
you're never going to get a trial like this in our modern world.
But look at what's happening to Donald Trump, EliteAri. It's just like the same.
Yeah, true. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Fuck. What were you? Oh, I've come away from this like loving John Proctor's wife when I thought I remembered her being the most boring character in the world, where it was just sort of a moral conundrum of like, should you cheat on your wife if she's boring and you don't like her with the cool chick? And the moral answer was no, you shouldn't. You should stick with your wife. When that's not what the plot was at all. So that was cool and great. And she was sick.
Did she remind you of the Black Sails, Eleanor's friend?
Oh my God, EliteAri, now that you say it, definitely. But yeah, I was just thinking about Catelyn Stark the whole time, you know? Even though they're not similar at all. Catelyn Stark is some fierce bitch.
True. All right. You want me to keep going?
More notes, come on.
I got
for whatever reason, by the way, I got a battery warning. I don't know how the battery drains so quickly, but yeah, it is kind of perfectly lining up.
It's been a while. All right, the scene with John, his wife, and Mary, and the needle, and then the one, what's his name, Mr. Hale.
Oh, what a great plot point.
That was a great scene. They're just talking to each other, giving the commandments and whatever, and...
we didn't talk about Mary.
The Hale guy's very likable.
Oh, yeah, True, Mary is her name. What an interesting character, yes.
I think it would be really interesting to...
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's been a while. I would be really interested in rewatching this.
Yeah.
Purely because I didn't know any of the characters going forward. So the first time I met them, I didn't really remember them, you know?
Yeah.
So now I want to rewatch it and be like, oh, I know who Mary is. I know who John is. I know who this old man is. Like, I'd like to rewatch it that way.
Yeah. There are other movie versions of The Crucible. But yeah, I don't know if they're as good. I think this
like more modern or older?
I think there is older versions, and I think there is like a 50s version. If you just look up Crucible on Letterboxd, a bunch of things come up. But I know like there are horror movies about the Salem witch trials where there are actually witches and they're roaming around, or it's like somebody in modern contemporary times goes to Salem and there's a fucking witch and fucking Abigail was right the whole time. I know there are also, I don't know if they're allegories, but there are like, because I typed in the Crucible and the first thing that came up was an Asian movie called Silenced. I think there are like different versions of like this same story. It's like the thing. Like I feel like there's like 10 Things I Hate About You is a teen movie about high school, but it's also based on a Shakespeare play where it's sort of like you take the ideas and the characters and put them in different, like Romeo and Juliet, where now they're garden gnomes or something. There are versions of this very famous story, EliteAri. But yeah.
Indeed. All right. John, we've talked about his speech, but when he's talking to his wife and they're confessing or whatever, I was just trying to figure out what they're talking about. And he's talking about how like he's already lived the life of sin and lying and cheating on his wife, so why not just give one more lie so that he can live?
Yeah.
That was just me trying to piece together what he's talking about.
But yeah, it's great.
Yep. And he gives his speech. I've given you my soul. Give me my name. Makes sense. What a guy. And then I wrote, it's just me like philosophizing while he's giving his speech. I'm like, what is more important? Your reputation, your identity, your ideals, those you love, your friends, what you hold dear. Like, a lot to think about when he's giving the speech.
See, great internal moral conflicts in the moments where you're riding the character and you're like, what's he going to do? What would I do? But what's he going to do? That's more interesting right now. And it's like, great. Can you believe this movie has a 3.1 on Letterboxd? I think people don't really like this movie, EliteAri.
That's funny. I wonder why. I thought it was very engaging, like at the least.
I think there are some play Puritans that might not like it because it is very similar, because I don't remember any big differences, even when we did them in class. But I think some people think maybe the acting is corny or something like that. I've definitely heard
some of the accents are weird.
Because my favorite YouTuber, Broe D Chanel, has talked about this movie in things, but if you go on Letterboxd right here, you see she's given it 5 stars, and the first thing is, call it boring, I don't care, I will simp for both the play and the movie until my dying day. She's got the right fucking idea over here. But even in her review here, she's basically saying, like, I know you all hate it, but I love it. So I think that is the common sentiment amongst most people.
Damn.
But you're giving it 5 stars, right? You said 4 out of 10 before.
No, 5. I think no, 4 out of 5. Jesus.
Yeah, not 10. That's what those shitty Berserk movies got, EliteAri. You got to give it at least 4.5. Come on now.
No, don't worry. I have a ranking. I put them in my.
Oh yeah, you do.
We'll see where it sits in that.
I'm trying to figure out if I'm giving this fucking movie 5 stars. Right? Is it the best movie we've done?
I'd have to rewatch it.
I don't know. Blonde was pretty good, EliteAri. Arthur Miller was in that. Can you believe that?
That is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
All of movie nights connected. There was another thing where movie nights were connected, and it was specifically to Blonde, but I can't remember. It was like episode 3.
Yeah, Roger Rabbit.
Maybe, probably not. But yeah. Fuck. I usually do this where I give it a rating in the thingy. Keep doing your notes, EliteAri. So I
have one more note.
Okay, go.
And he said, I said that John Proctor was a man who lived in sin and lies, but now that he is honest once more, they want him to lie again. Terrible. Maybe he said that directly, and I just wrote that down. But yep,
these
terrible.
Fucking cretins.
What a world, society. I hate men. I hate religion. I hate judges. Terrible.
And I love Abigail. I just gave it 5 stars on Letterboxd, EliteAri. I don't mean to flex on nothing. It joins the likes of Casablanca and Blonde as the only 5-star movies we've watched on movie night. EliteAri's got his alarm going off because
I got 2 minutes.
Yep. Any last thoughts for EliteAri? I might go on a little bit after you hang out. Though I only got 16% battery.
Yep. I would say that I enjoyed this. It would have been interesting to. It is interesting that this is selected as a text for schools. Like, I wonder why. Like, it's not. I mean, I guess it's quite in depth compared to other movies.
It's one of those seminal pieces where it's like, people like literary professionals will reference the Crucible all the time, like it is a Shakespeare thing or something. So I think that's probably why.
It was interesting, like watching this, knowing that people do study it and be like, I guess there is depth to this. Like immediately when I was watching, I was like, okay, so I have to assume there's at least some depth to this. It's a weird way to watch something.
There was part of me that
usually when you watch something, you don't know if it'll be like good or not. Like if it'll just be like a surface level, like I don't really think about it.
Yeah, there was part of me that realized like, this is actually better than everything I've ever seen, and sort of like the depth thematic thing where it's so short, but it has so many themes and it has commentary on so many themes, and it feels like if you go back, every scene can be broken down to have like an underlying character subtext and then an underlining thematic subtext. And it's like, man, this is why, like, maybe everything these fucking English teachers were saying was true, and like Shakespeare is better than these dumb fucking motion cartoons or something.
Yep.
I guess it gave me an appreciation of that type of thing. But yes, EliteAri's giving it 5 stars and he's signing out.
All right, keep going. See you later.
All right. Can you believe that chatty's abandoned us? Now what are we going to do? Fuck, I'm going flat fast. I got a critical battery warning. We ain't going on for very much longer at all. Old Boy and Lady Vengeance next week. Watch along, chat. Everybody's got to watch The Crucible. It's 5 stars. If you don't like the movie, tell me in the comments below so I can kill you. There was an interesting point where I was trying to think, like, how are we going to violently revolt in this town? And I was like, man, we get Giles over here. I'm John Proctor. I'm pretty fucking tall. Everybody else is shorter than me in this town because I'm Daniel Day-Lewis and I'm the star of this movie. And I was like, man, what if they just violently revolted? And then I was like, well, that's probably bad, especially if they kill this minister, then like the Boston army's going to come after them. I guess they could just run. There was a part where John is like in the water on the edge of the beach, and I'm like, just swim. Just swim away. Like, they don't have boats or nothing. Well, I guess they do have boats, huh? But they don't have mechanical boats or something. They got to go and get a boat. I don't know if they have a boat ready. They probably do fishing or something, so they probably do have a boat ready. You're going to outrun this fucking boat. You're going to get a head start. They got to go and get the fucking boat. You can get out of here. Should have just gotten on their boat with Abigail. We really should have done notes for this, I think, and by we, I mean me. EliteAri is the guest. And I think it would have led to a more fruitful discussion rather than us being all over the place. I'm actually, like, so happy that EliteAri liked it for whatever reason. I didn't know if he would. We were sort of saying things. I was sort of saying some inflammatory things about when I was scrolling through images to find on Google Images when we were chilling out in the call before we started recording, where I was like shit-talking John Proctor and Goody Proctor and clearly talking up Abigail, and I was like doing the things, and EliteAri would say, we'll see, and I was like, oh, does he hate the movie? But then no, it turns out he liked it. I'm giving it 5 stars, chat, and I'm not wavering. Is it better than Casablanca? Now that's a question. Is it better than Blonde? Probably not. But what a movie. Part of me does kind of want to watch it again. Part of me wants to make a million videos about this. Part of me wants to read the probably millions and billions of essays, like actual essays, like literary essays and shit about this movie and everybody else's thematic takeaways. I'm feeling rejuvenated. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling so fine, chat. What a great experience. 3.1 on Letterboxd. You know, these fucking idiots don't know shit when they gave... What do they give Blonde? A 1? Or some fucking shit? The greatest movie of all time. Can't wait for Miller to watch this movie and be grumpy about it. Hold on, I'm just looking up what Blonde has on Letterboxd, because I just got another critical battery warning. Blonde, the greatest movie of all time. A 2.1. Absolutely fucking disgusting. You idiots have no taste. Watch The Crucible. Oh, my avatar is still awkwardly in the middle here over Abigail's hair. Oh, she's the greatest. Well, with that being said, again, we said Old Boy, Lady Vengeance next week. Hopefully those movies are fun and dandy as well. With all that being said, we have to leave. For me, for EliteAri, we say goodbye. Support links in the description below. Thanks.